Welcome to the ICE Detention in Iowa and Protecting Your Family presentation. This presentation is prepared and presented by Iowa Migrant Movement for Justice. My name is Elizabeth Valcarcel, and I am the Rapid Response Community Organizer. With me is one of my co-workers, the attorney Barbara. So I would like her to introduce herself.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Barbie Rodriguez, staff attorney with IowaMMJ.
A disclaimer, the information is in this presentation is accurate as the day we are pre-recording this session, that is July 4, 2025. Immigration policies change constantly, and this information is subject to change at any time. This information should not be constructed as legal advice. Next, yeah. What follows after a loved one is detained? We have observed that families can feel lost, alone, and do not know where to start when their loved ones have been detained. This presentation is intended to give you general characteristics of what could happen and the resources available for those arrested. Should keep in mind that each case is specific, and you should not consider these steps as repetitive guide. Next. We want to start to letting you know that we have a hotline. The number is 515-505-8805. This line can be used for you to report an incident. When you call and report the incident, we're going to ask you the name of the person who has been detained, the day and place of birth. If you have any A number from the detainee that can help us to locate them more easily. We will help you to seek legal advice and connect with legal services, and providing you a list of the attorneys that can help to find the detainee and represent them. Next. Another way that we can use this hotline also is to collect some repetitive patterns of the arrest. When you want to call us and let us know that you are presencing an ICE detention or ICE activity, we will ask you for a place, date, and time. We also going to ask you for as much as possible some details of those characteristics of the arrest. Characteristics of the agents who carry out the arrest. Next. We also would like to connect you with community resources. We want you to know that there are some resources for the detainees as bail bonds programs that you can apply for it in case the detainee can qualify for bond. Resources to cover basic needs and provide you with emotional support. And we would like to remind you that the best suggestions that we can provide to you right now is to create a safety plan. Make sure that you have a safety plan in place that can be followed after an arrest. Next. And I will let you, Barbara, to tell you a little bit more about what we have seen on those detentions in Iowa.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So yes, I'm going to structure the rest of the presentation in the form of questions that I have heard from clients, from family members and friends of clients, and other community members who are interested in learning more about what ICE detention in Iowa looks like. Next. So one question that we get a lot is who is being detained by ICE in Iowa? And just want to start by emphasizing that the few examples I have here are not exhaustive of who is being detained by ICE in Iowa. And of course, this list is subject to change with emerging priorities from the current administration. So what we have seen recently include people who are newly arrested with either a state or a federal charge being transferred into ICE custody. So this can include cases where the charges that are being brought against an individual are minor, and when they are ultimately dismissed, that person can still be transferred into ICE custody. People are being transferred from state custody after ICE makes a detainer request to the jail to hold that person for 48 hours following their release from serving a sentence or from pretrial detention. We've seen cases where somebody might be in pretrial detention for a state charge, pay a bond in order to be released from county jail, but then immediately upon release, be transferred directly into ICE custody. So generally staying in the same jail or being transferred to one of the 6 county jails that are detaining for ICE. We've also seen people being arrested at ICE check-ins. So this can include people who were deported many years ago, but who were not returned, could not be returned to their home country for one reason or another, or other individuals who have entered the United States and received an order of supervision and had to report to an ICE office on an annual or every 6 months, every 18 months report to ICE. Those folks are being detained as well in the context of an ICE check-in. Next slide. So how do you know if someone is detained by ICE? We've gotten a lot of calls to the hotline and other kind of folks reaching out to figure out where a loved one is when they know they've been arrested, but they're not sure whose custody they're in. There might be an assumption or an educated guess that they are in ICE custody. And so here's one way to determine whether or not somebody is in fact in ICE custody. So the URL on top goes to the ICE detainee locator, which is a search platform on ICE's website that allows you to search using a person's name and A number, also known as their USCIS number, which is kind of an ID number that's affiliated with their immigration case. So you can use the A number and the country of birth of an individual to search and see whether they pop up and whether, if they do, if you search by name and A number, if they're in ICE custody, this platform should presumably take you to information about which facility they are detained in with contact information for that facility. If you don't have their A number, you can also search by name. So you would need to enter their first name and their last name and their country of birth. If you have their birthday, it can be helpful to include that as well. The search tool is pretty imperfect, and the first name and the last name have to be entered exactly as ICE has spelled it. So that means if ICE has only used one of the last names and there are 2, then you'll have to enter it with that one last name. If ICE has used kind of capital letters and lowercase letters in a way different than how a name is typically spelled, you'll have to do that too. So it's a tool that requires a lot of trial and error sometimes and a lot of patience, multiple attempts in order to be able to locate somebody. So not perfect, but maybe the best way to find out whether somebody is in ICE custody. Next slide. So where is ICE detaining people in Iowa? If that search tool might show you that they are housed in one of these 6 facilities across the state of Iowa. So currently there are 6 contracts with county jails in Polk County, Pottawatomie County, Woodbury, Lynn, Hardin, and Muscatine. I think Polk County has capacity for about 60 to 65 individuals, like bed space allocated for ICE. Pottawatomie has something like 30 to 40. And I think Woodbury, Lynn, Hardin, and Muscatine all house between 20 and 30-ish individuals for ICE. And I'm sure that number can fluctuate, but my understanding is that at this point in time, there are up to about 200 people who are being detained by ICE in Iowa County jails. Next slide. So that's all assuming that they're in Iowa. If you can't find them, though, on the ICE detainee locator, if you're looking for somebody, they're not turning up on the ICE detainee locator, It may well mean that they're not in ICE custody, but it may just be that they're not showing up for one reason or another. Don't panic. I think that's very important. When you're trying to find somebody, keep checking, keep spelling their name differently on this tool. If somebody is between facilities, it can take some time for the ICE detainee locator to show the up-to-date information. And in some cases, somebody might be transferred between county jails, including out of the state of Iowa, sometimes from Iowa to Louisiana. And each of those transfers take some time to be reflected on the detainee locator. If you know that they're in ICE custody or you want to make sure, you can also call these numbers. So include here the number to the Des Moines ICE office and to the Omaha ICE field office. The Omaha field office, I don't know that I've ever had them answer the phone, but I would still, I think if you have time and patience, keep trying. I think the Des Moines office, you're more likely to get the phone call answered. In the event that they're not in ICE custody or you're just not sure, also consider whether they might be in federal custody. So I've included here websites to search the inmate and detainee rosters for the federal prison as well as state prisons. So they might be in state custody serving a state sentence. And it's possible that somebody might be detained in a county jail in Iowa, but not one of those 6 that are detaining for ICE. So a lot or most, maybe all county jails publish some form of an inmate roster on their website. Some publish those same names like daily mugshots on Facebook. And so there's a fair amount of information that you might be able to find online just Googling. You can also call the county jails, ask if they're holding the person that you're looking for. And if somebody was arrested, even if it's for a minor crime, it might take a few days before they are ultimately transferred into ICE custody, assuming that there is an ICE detainer request that's outstanding or that's pending. So we have been getting a lot of calls about people who are difficult to find, difficult to locate after an arrest. So these are just some tools that you can use to try to track down the person that you're looking for. Next slide. And then here's some more contact information for these 6 county jails, and how you can go about contacting someone once you know where they are detained, how to actually reach them. Each county jail has its own rules and in some cases, they use the same platform to allow communication between folks who are detained and people on the outside. So Polk County Jail is the only one of the 6 that uses IC Solutions, which is available on icsolutions.com. Pottawatomie County Jail uses SIDNet. Woodbury, Lynn, and Hardin use NCIC, and Muscatine County Jail uses Inmate Canteen. And so for each of these platforms, somebody who wants to communicate with somebody who's detained at one of these jails will need to set up their own account in order to, you may need to deposit money into the account in order to make and receive calls. It can be expensive. Each has its own kind of rate per minute for phone calls and for video calls. Each might have also different visiting hours and visiting days. So you can call the jail to find out as much as possible about the mechanics of communicating with somebody who is detained at that jail. And then you can also follow up with the platform itself. It's not easy, it's complicated, it's confusing, it's frustrating, and it's expensive. These are the ways that I'm familiar with, though, as to how to go about reaching out to people. Next slide. Another question we get is about how parents can prepare for potential detention by ICE. And there are a lot of difficult questions that parents with children in the US will have to grapple with when making a decision about care. And so here I just wanted to identify some of the questions that we get a lot, and I don't have any really great answers at this point. And this is more of a roadmap for issues to consider, preferably prior to a detention. So Where will children live when a parent is detained? Where will children live if a parent is deported? And considering kind of how the answers to that question might shift depending on the citizenship of the children involved and the ages. With whom will children live? In order to be able to take guardianship over a child, each state has different requirements as far as what is required legally in a guardianship. Powers of attorney. We have a couple of examples, the kind of template power of attorney forms on our website. And so you want to think about the person that's designated to take care of children. Do they have the information and the legal authority that they need in order to be able to do that, to care for the children and to make decisions for them? Another consideration will be the kind of identity documents that children might need in order to travel outside of the country, to enroll in school, either in this country or another. Some of those documents would include birth certificates, national ID cards, and passports. And there can be different requirements in order to obtain those documents when both parents are not present. So reaching out to consulates, reaching out to us and to other kind of organizations that provide that kind of service at a time, prior to any kind of emergency context is ideal. And if there's personal property, if there's a house or a vehicle or pets, figuring out, who might be responsible for those and whether that person who would receive that kind of authority and responsibility has the information that they need and the legal authority that they need in order to be able to make those decisions. Next slide. So what happens when someone is detained by ICE? A person in Iowa who is arrested and detained by ICE will usually begin that process in an ICE office for processing in Iowa, and kind of having jurisdiction over residents of Iowa. There are 4 offices. There's the ICE office in Des Moines, in Cedar Rapids, in Sioux City, and one in Omaha. And so generally that's where somebody's detention or time in ICE custody will begin, with an office visit where they will be interviewed and kind of receive a notice to appear. There's an example of a notice to appear or an NTA on the slide. And that if they haven't had any interaction with immigration thus far, then in the context of that processing meeting in the ICE office, they will receive one of these notices to appear that marks the beginning of the removal or deportation process and identifies the charges against that individual and when their next hearing in immigration court will be. There's a 9-digit A number on the top right of the notice to appear. So in the event that this is somebody's first interaction with ICE and with immigration, this might be the first time they receive a document that has an A number assigned to them. And that's a 9-digit number. I think it usually begins with a 2 lately, but it's a 9-digit number, super important to try to memorize and remember, share it with somebody trusted, so that that can facilitate finding information about that person's immigration case down the road. It's any kind of application, any immigration process moving forward will be linked to that A number. Next slide. So a few things to remember. Somebody who's arrested by ICE and detained by ICE is not required to answer any questions. They are not required to sign any papers. Despite any pressure they may face to do so, there's no requirement. Everyone has a right to an interpreter that can be understood and to understand in a language that they can communicate in, and has a right to legal representation at their own expense. So the government will not provide an attorney. There's not yet a public defender system in the context of immigration proceedings, but there is a right to find legal representation and to cover the expense on one's own. Next slide. And then a little bit about release. So how can someone be released from ICE detention? So a person who's detained in the context of removal proceedings and deportation proceedings, when there's an opportunity to have a hearing and to speak with a judge, there may be an opportunity to ask an immigration judge to set a bond for their release. Minimum immigration bond is $1,500, which is a lot, but the typical bonds are even higher, so they tend to range, lately at least, between $5,000 and $10,000 when bond is given. It does seem increasingly difficult to get a bond. Generally, a person gets only one chance to ask an immigration judge for a bond. And in that consideration, the immigration judge will want to know whether the person is a danger to the community or a flight risk. So it will be whether somebody is representing themselves or with counsel. That bond hearing will be an opportunity to prove to the judge and to explain to the judge why they're not a danger to the community and why they will and how they will be present for every future immigration hearing. So not a flight risk, meaning will be around and available and ready to participate in all future immigration hearings. The judge may also consider any hardship that a person's family may experience if they are kept in detention, as well as whether they're eligible for any form of permanent status or immigration relief. Presenting evidence can be very helpful in this context. So presenting evidence of and proof of family ties and connections in the United States, proof of steady employment and a permanent living address, proof of community involvement, and any evidence of good moral character and a history of complying with the law and a history of not fleeing in the context of court hearings. And another plug for Prairie Lands Freedom Fund, which is an awesome organization here in Iowa and has a lot of great resources related to immigration bond on their website. I would encourage everyone to check out. And in the event that someone finds themselves in this situation and needs information and or economic assistance for paying that bond, strong plug for Prairie Lands Freedom Fund. Next slide. And preparing for deportation. So another question that comes up a lot is how to help a loved one kind of be ready for a deportation and what can be done from the outside to facilitate that process, make that process a little bit less of a challenge. And so one of the things to keep in mind is that it is possible to drop a bag off to share some personal items with an individual who will be deported. And that will generally take place from Omaha for anybody who's detained in Iowa. So that's a picture of the federal building in Omaha where the ICE office is located. So bags can be dropped off generally on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. The address is 1717 H Avenue. And the person who drops off the bag will have to stay in the building and with ICE while an officer inspects the inside of the bag. So that might inform who goes to drop off the bag. They'll only allow one carry-on size bag per person, maximum 40 pounds, so not too heavy. And there shouldn't be any money, like no cash, no valuables, no electronic items. My understanding is that one cell phone is allowed. Generally, when somebody is arrested, they will likely have a cell phone with them. So that phone might already be in the jail with their whatever items they were arrested with, if that is the context in which they were arrested. But so one phone is probably all that they would allow. And any money that's in an inmate's account, assuming that they're coming from an Iowa County jail, money will be cashed out or supposed to be cashed out and turned over to them before their departure. For any questions about items that will be dropped off, again, that's the same number to the Des Moines ICE office. So that would be, I think, the right place to call to ask questions about what kinds of items can be dropped off and where and when, particularly in light of in the event that somebody might be deported sooner. Maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays won't work for every situation. And so that's a number to call to see whether alternative plans can be made. Next slide. And then here's our website. So if you go to IowaMMJ.org, you will find this array of resources that are available. And I think we're, relatively constantly updating them. So, check in often and pull whatever's useful. We've got the list of immigration attorneys who practice in the Iowa and Nebraska area, a number of videos and know your rights materials, a link to our hotline number, and a couple of sample powers of attorney forms. So check it out. And next slide. And then I will turn it back to Elizabeth. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Barbie, for that important information. And we just want to remind you to check out our webpage. This is all the forms you can connect with us. As Barbie said, we constantly update information and send out information to the relevant to the community. You can follow us on the social media or just contact us directly to our mail address or by phone number. We will be happy to provide assistance as much as possible. Can we get the next slide? And we just want to say thank you. And on board, we will be there and support you as much as possible. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or you need more information. You have the website. Also follow us in social media. Thank you.